Hey everyone, welcome back to the Road to 2000 series. This is episode 10. So, a few days ago, I played another rapid game, and as you can probably tell by the title, I won. And I've now won 5 games in a row and hit a peak rating of 1881. So, that was pretty cool. But let's get into the game. Let's see how this one went. So I was black for a change. I've been white like 3 games in a row. Um, and my opponent played d4. And against d4, I mean, I play like a pretty standard setup. d5, they play knight f3. I get the knight out. They get the bishop out to f4. And I like playing this c5. So they're sort of setting up in like a London formation, and I try and play c5, like, attack the d4 center, put a bit of pressure on there. Yeah, and I'll go through the opening quite quickly, I think, because it was a long game, and I want to, like, the key moments of the game sort of happened at the end. But basically, okay, white played e3. I got the bishop out. They play knight b to d2. I get my other knight out. And when they attack my bishop, I like taking. And I actually notice it's the top engine move. What I like doing is basically, often in these queen's pawn openings, I like trading off my light squared bishop and then just putting all my pawns, or at least this sort of central, three line, all on light squares, and that sort of helps to cover my light squareds, that my absence of a light squared bishop. Yeah, so that's basically my plan. And yeah, it seems to work pretty well for me. Even though I give my opponent the bishop pair, I kind of like the positions that I get. So that's what I go for often. Okay, my opponent plays c3, and I take in the center, and they take back with the e pawn. Now, also in these sort of structures, I have a very simple plan. Basically, what I do is I play a6, b5, put a rook to the c file, if not two, double up on the c file, and prepare for this move b4. And just basically attack this pawn. Chip away at it with a pawn. If they don't take me on that pawn on b4, then I take, they take back. And with a control of the c file, I can often win a pawn there. If they do take, then normally I can take back with a knight or a bishop, and that also just compromises their structure. This is now an isolated pawn, which eventually I can probably win. So yeah, if they just do nothing here, I'll show you my like ideal setup. Let's say we trade bishops. They're still doing nothing. We castle. Let's say they develop a bishop now, and they castle, and we double up rooks, and yeah, basically try play for this. In this case, the bishop's sort of attacking this pawn, but which is sort of relevant for what happened in the game. But basically, I try prepare this b4 move and chip away here. Try control the c file and basically play like that. Okay, but in the game, yeah, okay, I started with bishop d6. They dropped the bishop back. Not sure if that was the best move. I mean, typically you don't want to trade off your strong bishop. This is kind of my strong bishop for their weaker bishop, since this bishop's on a dark square and their pawns are on dark squares. But yeah, I wanted to contest this diagonal, which was pretty strong, I felt. But anyway, they drop back, castle, bishop d3. I bring my rook to the c file. This is the start of my plan to really dominate the c file. They castle as well. I go a6. I'm sort of commencing my plan. They play queen e2, and then I, continue with my plan b5, and basically this b5 move is just a really big mistake. And I think, yeah, it's a mistake because I fail to notice and to think about what my opponent is doing with placing their bishop on d3, supported by the queen behind it. I just go in a little bit too much of autopilot mode. Think I can, crack this sort of structure with no opposition, and yeah, it's really just not a very good plan because of the move a4. And if they play a4, basically I'm just going to lose like both of these pawns. Like I can push it, but then okay, this bishop takes a6, and then if we go takes, perhaps I'm going to win back this pawn eventually, but this outside like passed pawn is just really strong. So when I try and disrupt this sort of d4, c3, b2 structure, losing the a pawn is not part of the plan, is not what should happen in an ideal scenario. So yeah, a little bit too much like just autopilot mode from me. Okay, my opponent didn't play a4, they played b4, but yeah, I think I sort of I played knight b8 to try and add protection here because I saw that a4 was coming, and also to like unleash an attack here. But basically, yeah, I just get like run over here. They defend this pawn. I try and go with my strategy of, dominating the c file, but then they play a4. I bring my queen to c7. They can take, and take, but then I take this pawn at the end, and after takes, it's okay for white, but I think they've got an opportunity to be a bit patient here. Because there's just so much pressure on these two pawns. I think they can try and win these pawns without losing the c3 pawn. Sorry, that c3 pawn. So yeah, I mean, they start with bishop d2, which is just the very logical way to make that happen. And now I can sort of see that, like, if I let them take me, like, let's say I bring my other rook to c8 and we go takes, I'm just down a clean pawn and I'm not winning that pawn at the end. So I decide to like instigate the trade. Not a bad move. In fact, it's the best move, I think, in the position. It was more, playing b5 in the first place. That was my error. But anyway, they took back. I bring my other rook to c8. I was considering trying to hold on to the a pawn, like for example, something like queen b7. But so after takes, obviously I've got enough defenders there. But I thought it was a very short-term goal. Like for example, they can bring the other rook now, and I didn't feel, well, yeah, and I think I just can't hang on to this pawn now. So yeah, queen b7 is just a short-term solution. So instead, I played rook c8. My opponent took. I took back, and after takes, I played knight e4. But yeah, basically, in this position, I'm just down a pawn. I mean, I do have good pressure here on the backward c3 pawn, but yeah, it's not a great position. And basically, I mean, the game is a very long game, so not really. I don't really want to go through the whole thing very slowly, but basically, we trade rooks. Knight e5 comes in. I can take, but again, I want to sort of hold on to this bishop. I was also noticing, sometimes like there's a sacrifice on b4, and if they take, we can win the rook. But in this case, that bishop's still defending the rook, so that's not really on the cards right now. So instead of taking, I just drop back with my queen. Not the most accurate move. Knight d3 drops back to d3, looking like they want to get into c5. Here, I wanted to try avoid trades. Like, I didn't want to have to take the knight on c5. So I thought this was quite clever, even though the engine didn't like it, which is I dropped my bishop back so that I could meet knight c5 with knight d6, like freeing up a square there for the knight on d6. And yeah, like with the aim of maybe trying to get in here. Okay, after bishop f4, yeah, I realized here that if I play a move that's a little bit lazy, like let's say queen h7, which looks very logical, I did notice this sacrifice here on e6. For example, knight takes on e6, f takes on e6, and queen takes with check. And after you move, white wins back the piece that they sacrificed. And if we trade, they've just won 2 pawns there, and they're already up a pawn, so they're up 3 pawns. So I thought that I had to keep my queen guarding these 2 pieces, so that after the takes check, I can move my king, but then white doesn't win the knight at the end or the bishop. So I played queen d8. Which was not the best move. Apparently rook a8 was good to just ignore the pin. Yeah, I thought I had to get out of that pin. Okay, I played queen d8. White traded and played g3. And now it's like, yeah, it's plus 1.9 after the best move, which is rook a8. But I still felt like I could, I wanted to try and create some problems here for white. Like, the b pawn is strong, admittedly, but the c pawn is very weak, and it's not that easy to like advance this pawn without the help of the c pawn. So yeah, I felt that white needed to. My sort of plan was to try and dominate the A file, and I thought that white needed to somehow counter dominate it, like create some opposition on the A file. But anyway, I played rook to the A file, king there, queen c7. I brought my rook up to attack this c3 pawn. And also with the idea of getting my queen to the A file, we throw in a f4 and g6. At this point, I'm down to 1 minute. My opponent's got 4 minutes. Definitely that's going to become relevant. I was trying to play a bit quickly. Okay, we have queen d2. Not really sure what that does. And now I've got control of the A file. So yeah, I feel like the last few moves have sort of turned the tide a little bit. king h2, I bring my king up. Okay, h4, and I play rook a1. And yeah, basically, like, we're both have really low time now. 30 seconds to 40 seconds. It's a bit of a scramble. Queen e2. I move the bishop. I'm just sort of playing moves that don't lose, or trying to play moves that don't lose. Here I play a move that actually does lose. So rook b1 has a pretty clear idea of like queen a1 and trying to come in behind. I failed to consider or to think of, or just in my time scramble, I played that move with 8 seconds on the clock. Like rook a2 right now is just super strong for white. After rook a2, yeah, white dominates the a file again, which was my only sort of chance. Like queen here is what the engine's saying, but yeah, that does look like it just shuts down everything I've got going. And probably my rook might get stuck as well, like on the first rank. But my opponent doesn't play it. Also, like, quite low on time, they play knight e5, and then I get in behind. And yeah, basically here I started feeling like, I've got a pretty good chance. My main sort of thing that I was trying to do from here was to keep these pieces on the first rank, not trade them, try and make it difficult for my opponent to move, and yeah, like, just play on his time. I know I've got low time too, but I felt that my moves were probably easier. I was just going to like move these pieces up and down. So basically that's what happened. Like, we shuffled along the first rank a bit. He attacked my bishop, I moved it. Moving the knight around, I played h5. Brought my king to h6. He attacked my queen, so I moved it. I don't want to trade queens here. f5 was a bit of a tricky move, because if I take, there's a discovered check, and I lose. I think it's like a forced mate in here. So that was the one little tricky thing that I had to avoid, but I moved my king. I spotted that with 3 seconds on the clock, so that was pretty dicey. Takes, queen f2. I avoided the queen trade again. Attacks my queen, I moved it out the way. Then after queen e2, I played queen g1. Moved the queen around a couple more times. After queen e2 again, I played bishop d6. And I had in mind an idea to try and go after this pawn. And I was sort of waiting for the opportunity to be able to play bishop d6. There are only 2 moves that white can play here that don't lose, according to the engine. And white's got 20 seconds, so, and in my opinion, they're not that easy to find. Basically, the only 2 moves that white can play are queen b5 and queen a6. And yeah, I don't really understand it. I think it's just to sort of create counterplay. Like, try attack, like queen a6 attacks my bishop, queen b5, maybe there's some sort of perpetual check, or at least, some dangerous checks after queen b5. But my opponent didn't play that. They played queen g2, and now I played rook g1, and yeah, this is pretty much over now. Like, after they move the queen, which they did, then I can take this pawn with check, and becomes tough for white to sort of defend that. Like, there's lots of lines now that are showing like -4 and -3 and all sorts of things like that. Even if white didn't go with their queen to g2, like even if they played this move, it's also losing because of rook g1. So it's not that I was able to attack the queen with tempo, like it's just that I was able to connect the rook and the bishop on this g3 pawn. So yeah, that was basically after queen g2, I played rook g1. The queen moved and I took the pawn with check. Now, according to the engine, queen takes on g3, giving up the queen for the rook and the bishop is the best move. I wonder if it might have been more, challenging for me practically with low time if my opponent like played this, something like that. Yeah, because here like the best moves are like rook h3, queen h1, queen b3, and none of those moves seem that obvious to me. Whereas after they sacrifice the queen for the two pieces, I feel like I can just sort of gain a bit of time, like checking the king and trying to open up the position. Like the moves seem to flow a bit more freely for me. H4 caused the knight to have to be sacrificed. And like here, I was literally just trying to check the king and gain some time. So after a few checks, I played queen e4 check. They blocked with the rook, and I played king g4, and then they resigned. So yeah, basically, like I think the opening was pretty not great because I went onto autopilot mode playing b5. But I think that in the time scramble, I was able to make the moves for my opponent more difficult than they made mine, even if the position was equal by the engine. So, and I think that caused me to win in the end. I mean, they got into a situation where, like in this situation where there's only two moves that draw, and they're not, they're sort of counter-attacking with a queen and a rook on your first rank, which looks pretty scary to do. So I don't think that's the easiest. Those are the easiest moves to find. But yeah, so I think that's a good lesson in like, it's not always what the engine says that is the true evaluation of the position. From a human perspective, it's about which is easier to play, especially under time scramble. So, yeah, I was happy with that win. I've now got 5 wins in a row, up to 1881, and yeah, seem to be in good form. But I'm sure it'll turn at some point, and just have to keep doing the basics right. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching. I'll probably play a couple more games this week and post the recap later in the week. Maybe on Sunday or early next week. We'll see how we go. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching. And I'll see you all next time.